Spreading your awareness throughout the whole body. I'd like you to listen from the body. Listen with one eye open on the body. And today I'd like to talk about a topic that I feel is often overlooked, and one that may not seem overly relevant in your life. I find that for most people, when we think about what's really immediately relevant in life, it's a problem, a relationship, a financial situation. Sometimes it's a dhamma related issue, but it's not often virtue, or what is called Sila, Sila, in the language of Pali. So let me define this. Sila, it refers to your goodness, your morality, consistency, your discipline, your skill in goodness. It's a skill. Your virtue. And the Buddha said when you practice virtue, it leads to non-regret. And virtue, again, it's so fundamental. It's really so important. And I think it's really helpful for us to, time and time again, reflect on this quality of Sila that the Buddha taught. And first, let me talk a little bit about why it may not feel relevant. For some people, there's a sense of, I am virtuous. I'm good and I follow the precepts if I'm aware of the 5 precepts, or, I always do the right thing. And I've even seen where this can sometimes, in your own mind, it can go like, oh, I'm kind of boring. I'm not that exciting because I always do the right thing. I always do what I'm supposed to do. So we can think of one's virtue in that way, and that doesn't feel alive or relevant. Another way a practitioner can think about ethics or morality is, I'm pretty good, but there's certain things that I don't do well. Maybe I drink a little bit too much or smoke a little bit too much, or maybe I lie about this one thing, or, I'm great in every way except I am, except in, I cheat on my spouse, I have infidelity, or XYZ, right? And so sometimes for people who might put themselves in that category, there's a resistance to even think about virtue, because it spurns up guilt, and we feel guilty when we start to think about the idea of ethics and morality. And so it becomes irrelevant to us because we're not ready to change certain things in our behavior. So we just kind of put it to the side. Virtue can sometimes seem irrelevant because it might feel like it's beneath us. Like, oh, we get that. We're pretty good, and we're interested in the deeper aspects of the Dhamma. We're interested in samadhi, this blissful, pleasurable state of mind. We're interested in nibbana, enlightenment, awakening. So these are just a few ways of how we can deprioritize, de-emphasize virtue. And, I think it's really interesting. The Buddha broke through to something so deep that it goes beyond concepts. He awakened to a reality. He even to call it a reality is a concept. He awakened to something that was so profound that it irreversibly destroyed the conditions that give rise to suffering, stress, unsatisfactoriness. So we're talking about something really deep here. And the Buddha said that we have these deeply entrenched views, so it's difficult to reach nibbana or nirvana, enlightenment. And yet, after he does this, he teaches a path. He tries to formulate, and he actually rediscovers a path that he then goes around teaching people, right, for the next 45 years or so. And the foundation of this path is Sila, virtue. Can you see almost the irony of this? We're so used to being told to be good, and you see it across most religions, I would imagine, and in a lot of different cultures, and the way certain parents will raise their kids. So in a way, it's sort of commonplace to hear this idea of to be virtuous. But isn't it interesting that when the Buddha awakened to something so beyond that, that it went beyond even the existence of oneself. He awakened to the truth that there is no self, no non-self, that we're not really here, as if this is a dream. That he awakened to something that really shatters our typical mundane sense of reality, and yet he emphasized virtue as the foundation. And if you're listening to me, you might have some sense, some sort of trust in the Buddha's teachings. You don't have to be Buddhist by any means. So you can sort of marvel at that. Why would this be the case? And so I kind of want to talk today about Sila, about virtue, in a way that really brings this to life. And, to me, this is magic. This is so precious. It's like a magical potion or, an amulet. And in certain Buddhist countries, like in Thailand, you can get these amulets that are blessed by monks or have, certain pictures of certain awakened monks and stuff like that. And in Taoism, there are certain stones like jade that hold power and a certain vibration. And anyway, so in certain traditions, you can wear an amulet, right? And it protects you. And virtue is like that. It's like an invisible amulet that you wear around your neck. And what I mean by this is your virtue. Whatever goodness you have, it is like a protective spell, destroying regret, destroying bad karma, bad merits, protecting you from paths in life that could lead to very ugly experiences. So whatever goodness you have, I want you to appreciate it, to honor it as if it's the most precious thing that you own. Your most precious possession, your own goodness, your morality, your consistency, your commitment. Your commitment to your own well-being, your commitment to the well-being of others. It's priceless. There is no amount of money that anyone could give me in which I would exchange my virtue, whatever virtue I have. There's no amount of money. It's my treasure. It's absolutely sacred. So it's not boring. It's not some mundane level of a deeper philosophy. When you can trust in your own skill to not harm other beings, to not lie, to not speak in a manner that is conniving, not straightforward, to speak truthfully, to speak gently, to speak wisely. When you can trust your commitment towards your spouse, your lover, your relationship, when you trust that you will not encroach on another committed relationship, when you can trust that you will not take what is not given, that anyone else's possessions are safe in your hands, when you can trust that someone could drop their wallet and no matter how much is in there, you would give it to them. And when you can trust your own skill in not needing to intoxicate yourself. And here I'm sort of paraphrasing and talking loosely about the 5 precepts, which are 5 basic rules that the Buddha recommended for all beings. When you can trust these, and not as some sort of restrictive laws, but more when you've seen that your own heart has reached a level of purity in which the heart sees these things as dangerous, as beneath it. I mean, this is really, it is really a treasure. And it's so rare in the world. And my recommendation for practitioners is not only to practice virtue, but again, to really appreciate your own virtue, to behold it, and to linger with that beholding. And the Buddha talks about a meditation that he taught that's called recollection of one's virtue. So this is a meditation that goes all the way back to the Buddha's lips. I want you to think about your own goodness, to see what happens when you spread your awareness throughout your whole body and you think about your own goodness. See what happens. And if something is blocking you, if there's a regret, if there's something that makes you feel like you're not virtuous, I want you to feel that as well. Feel it. Let the suffering of that change the way you behave. And form a vow, a wish to be better, to be skilled in goodness, and see how even that wish, that aspiration, lifts the heart. A couple of weekends ago, I went to visit my wife's grandparents, and they've been married for a long time, and her grandfather is 93, just turned 93. So we went up for his birthday, and one of the things that, how do I say this? So, nowadays on TV and Netflix and movies and music, there's a lot. I'm a fan of hip hop music, so there's a lot of this in hip hop. There's a lot of art or music, TV that kind of flirts with the fantasy of infidelity, right? So that you'll see a lot of like Netflix shows about these housewives or married women who are courted by other men, and you'll hear rappers rapping about how they, get your girl, and you know what I mean. So there's this thing in our society, this, and it comes with, when we think of something like marriage, this is a commitment that you make over a long period of time. And so it's frequent, I think, today for if something is wrong in the marriage, for one to fantasize about something else. And some people will then go live out that fantasy. And we have this image now in our culture through these different medias. So anyway, when I see my wife's grandparents, it's a different image. Her grandfather is very, he has a lot of health issues right now, and he's very strong in his mind and his heart, but his body has been through a lot. And his wife has been there helping to take care of him for decades. It's a huge duty. And there's something so beautiful about that. And I told them, recently that for me, they're an example that we are not made noble by what we possess or by what others say. We are noble when we honor our commitments, when we take care of the ones we love, and when we speak straightforwardly and honestly. This is what makes us noble. And what's the point of you practicing meditation or dhamma, if others are not safe around you? What's the point? If you haven't made up your mind to not injure others by lying to them, stealing from them, coveting what they have, I mean, really, what are you doing here? And moreover, your heart wants to be good. And this is something I think the Buddha saw. Your heart wants to be good. Some of us, we have trauma because our parents or grandparents told us to always be good, and so we wanted to be good, and then they told us we were bad. And so I know this about a lot of people, where the idea of being good is something that we rebel against because we might have a different sense of what right and wrong is from our parents. So if that's what's going on in your mind, okay, I'm not here to fight that, but in your own heart, if you listen to it, it will tell you when something is right or wrong. Now the trick here is you have to practice awareness. If you don't practice awareness, you might not be aware of your own regret. And this happens to a lot of people when they sit down and meditate. If you are skilled in goodness and you know your own virtue, it is a lot easier to meditate because regret doesn't come up. And if it does, you're able to deal with it in a skillful manner. So anyway, your heart knows what is good, and when you act in a way that is in accordance with your heart, the heart rises. So this is why virtue is the foundation of the path towards peace. The heart rises and it comes to samadhi. This beautiful samadhi, this dwelling place of the heart that is so beautiful, so pleasurable, so free, unobstructed, unalloyed, unrestricted. And then insights come to you. You start to your practice gains momentum and wisdom arises. You're able to let go of what does not serve you. And you're able to become more and more discerning about what you should do, what you shouldn't do, what leads to suffering, what leads to freedom. So I realize now when I bring up the image of my wife's grandparents, it's a really useful image for me and for my wife because we adore her grandparents, and she really adores them. And in a way, I want each of you to find your own image. And I brought up hip hop artists, right? And it's like I was definitely influenced by hip hop music, and in a lot of helpful ways and other ways that were not helpful, when I was younger. It's like over life, we develop an image of what is, it might be what's cool or what's appealing to us. I remember Jay-Z, who's a well-known rapper. I'm just chuckling. I wonder if any of my audience doesn't know who Jay-Z is. But anyway, Jay-Z talks about how when he was growing up in Brooklyn, the successful people around him were the drug dealers. And he felt like everyone else was wasting away in poverty and didn't have a way out. But the drug dealers, they had the nice car, they had money, they had access. So that's what he did. But then later he found that the drug dealing led to a lot of regret, and he had to go through years of therapy and whatnot. But anyway, our image the image that we hold in our heart is really important. So I mentioned the image of a grandfather. For me, the image of the Buddha is really powerful. And if you're Buddhist and you're holding an image of a monk, that's great, right? But I don't want you to feel that your virtue has a ceiling. Like my virtue can only go up to here. If I was a monk, it would be even higher. I personally don't subscribe to that view. I want you to be fully invested in the possibility of your virtue to its absolute pinnacle. So even images of like gods or deities, angels, I think this can be really useful for some people. And for others, think of someone who's really noble, really trustworthy, someone who can give you a gift of safety. Where again, when you're around them, you have nothing to fear. You're not going to be lied to. You're not going to be gossiped about later. You're not going to be, your possessions are not coveted. Like, let's not get it backwards. This is, what I'm talking about is beautiful. And necessary. Praiseworthy. So again, spread your awareness throughout your whole body. Who do you want to be? What kind of person would you like to be? You have this amazing opportunity of life as a human being. You have infinite possibility. You could be anyone at all. You could go anywhere at all. You could do anything at all. Who are you going to be? And if you'd like, you can heed the Buddha's call to become discerning, to incline your life towards thoughts, speech, and actions that lead to happiness, peace, freedom, joy, and to abandon and prevent states of mind, actions, speech that lead to suffering for you and for others. You can point yourself in this direction. And maybe there are some things that you want to carve out of your life. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. Go ahead and make that assertion in your heart. And do your best to live up to it. You know, it's honoring these kinds of commitments are a journey, I find. But you make the intention, you give it effort, and over time, you'll be able to look back and really see that you've elevated yourself. You know, in Buddhist cosmology, there are very descriptive, writings about heavenly realms. And in Buddhist cosmology, we can be reborn in heavenly realms, but and hell realms as well. But it's impermanent. Eventually, we'll have to die, and according to our karma, we'll be reborn again. And this goes on and on and on forever until we attain nibbana or enlightenment. There are many different deva realms. The deva realm is the realm just above the human realm. There's terrestrial devas that are living close to Earth, and then there are devas who go far beyond. And anyway, one of the things that it's said is that human beings don't smell good to devas. We smell foul. But when a human being is virtuous, our fragrance is sweet to the devas. And if I'm not mistaken, the Buddha once said that, as I recall, that if a married couple, if the two people in a marriage are virtuous, then for each of the each spouse, it's as if they're living with a deva, a heavenly being. Think about that. It's as if we're lifting ourselves up to the next level of consciousness, above the human realm. And whether or not you believe this sort of thing, you can take it as a useful story, a useful image. And again, part of what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to enchant our sense of Sila, to mystify it and make it magical. Because so many people in the world, again, the news, the Netflix, whatever it is you're watching, most of it is not going to encourage Sila in this way, in the way that the Buddha does. So I want to do that, and I want you to do that for yourself, to really encourage your own goodness. It is the best investment you can make. And no matter who you are, no matter how good you are, you can deepen this practice, the skill of goodness. So I offer this for your reflection. And may all beings share in the blessings springing from this teaching. By the power of these blessings, may all be well, happy and peaceful. Buddhang Dhammang Sanghang Namasami.